That's fine, we'll give it. I think everyone's still wandering around. So.
Yeah. It's always happens at these afternoon breaks. Hectic. No, I've been travelling. Who's carrying on the good fight? So that's cool. Hi, bro. That's fine. That's good. I can work there. Boy. No. Boy. You sound like that's not nice. Sorry. No one. How are you doing? You alright? Right, yes, yeah. Most people. Always the thing to move off on like that. I think this is all we're going to get. Yeah. Go and dry them up, go on. Come sit down.
Yeah, are we waiting for the run to come out? I think that's what you're waiting for. Alright. We are recording already, so Right, started rolling, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Always let me know.
It's the editor's problem. Don't worry about that.
So, I thought this is going to be a reasonably quiet session, given some of the other ones that are going on. So, my name is Martin Bruce. I've recently moved into a worldwide role, looking after flash system sales. And I'm focused on the volume end of it, which I don't class as being a product focus. It's not just about the 5,000. It's about the end of it where an IBM seller isn't necessarily engaged. It's our ecosystem are critical in reaching the maximum number of clients possible, and what tools do we put in place to make that as easy as possible. So I've moved from the EMEA flash system role. I'm replaced in EMEA by Whyte from NCE, so he takes over from me. It's Stan. And this is why I've moved into a worldwide role, because this is my family and I want to spend as much time away from them as possible. That's not true. They're lovely. They don't always look like that, neither do I. But, as I say, we've heard today about a lot of new features like Flash Grid, policy-based replication, policy-based HA. You're going to hear about more features over the next day as well. And I know that we've got business partners here, we've got clients here, we've got IBMers here. And when we think about those new features, there's a lot that's changing, right? Global Mirror is going away, Hyperswap is going away, clustering, not really the preferred option. You should be putting in the new flash system grid. So there's a lot to think about, a lot to digest. And when we think about those new features, I like to use the analogy with a car. You might have a BMW at the moment. You might be thinking about an electric BMW to replace the ice that you've got. Fair enough. But would you do it virtually? Would you do it just in terms of testing that system remotely? Or would you prefer something a little bit more hands-on? Or in the case of this guy here, a little bit more hands and feet, which is a very unusual way to drive, and I'm not quite sure how he's using the pedals. So I hope he's got autopilot engaged there. But you know, the whole idea is that you want to be sure that the features or the products that you're moving to are going to work, they're going to service your purposes, and that you're going to find something that really works for you. Now, we've had demo and proof of concept programs in the past, and we realized that they were probably a little bit inflexible, a little bit timely, a little bit difficult to use. It's hard to get. For various reasons, you know, because the process was complex, because they were costly, there was an internal cost for IBM, there was perhaps a cost for the business partner, there's not often a cost for the customer. And so really to look at a brand new process that brought systems and put them in the hands of you as partners and as customers so that you can test, not necessarily just as a brand new customer to IBM or to IBM storage, but because you want to test 3-site, you want to test flash system grid before you put it in, you want to test a flash system 9500 to replace your flash system 9200. There's all kinds of reasons that you may want to leverage a program like this. And so the whole idea was to come out with something that was very simple, that had no cost in it for yourselves as business partners or as customers, and crucially as well for IBM, because you know we love tying ourselves in a lot of complexity sometimes, that there was no internal charge, no cross charge for any of the countries either. The whole idea being to put kit, brand new kit, in your hands as partner and into the customer's hands as quickly as we can. So this brings us IBM Flash System Test Drive. So who here has used or at least heard of the test drive program before? Okay, a couple. Have you used it?
Not yet.
Not yet. So, you know, I think sometimes it's one of those things that people can think it almost sounds too good to be true. But we kind of did it that way so that it really removes all of the complexity and all of the objections. It's one form. It's a very simple form. It's not even 2 sides of A4. We don't insist on things like an ISC opportunity number. We really want to hear from you as to what the use case is. What are you looking to test? There's no commitments. You don't have to buy. You don't have to get a price in advance. You don't have to get anything. The company that was doing this were previously called iRent. They've now changed their name, but exactly the same concepts remain. It's exactly the same company we've used. They are amazing at logistics. You do the form, you send it into them, they send it into IBM, it's approved. It will now be either Havoye, Stan, or David Chancellor Madison in the EMEA Geo that will approve those programs. We can do pretty much all of the countries in Western Europe. We can do some, we can do most of Central Eastern Europe and a couple of bits of EMEA. I think Turkey is now possible and other places as well. The whole idea of this is for not a long-term loan. This is designed to be something that goes in, is turned over really quickly. The ideal time is 2 weeks. So 2 weeks on premise. That's not including the transport and the time shipping it there. It's 2 weeks of actual on-premise testing, which if you have a nice defined plan, we've normally found that it's long enough. If you need it for longer, then just ask. But we'd rather know upfront in advance as to whether it's something that we need to invest in or something that it's going to be possible maybe with a better test plan to bring in a bit quicker. And as I say, you know, I can't say it enough, there is zero cost to anyone outside of the IBM EMEA team. All the costs are managed and absorbed by us, including all the transport and anything. And crucially as well, there's no contract. There isn't a contract between you and iRent, or their new name now. Nothing at all for the customer to sign. IBM takes on all responsibility for the system. Just please retain the packaging and don't break it and drop it on the floor or out of the rack, because it does obviously cost us as the program something. But you know, the whole idea is to get you the system as quickly as possible, normally within 2 weeks to get a system there, and then it's 2 weeks on the ground, call up the company, they will then collect the system from you. What we do ask, and we have had this hit problems before, is that, you know, as I say, I'm here from the volume. We are totally ecosystem focused. We don't just want a system landing at a customer completely cold. Ideally, it's handheld all the time by the business partner to make sure that, you know, everything is going smoothly, from setting that system up and getting it implemented to actually going through a test plan. You know, whether they want to test 3-site or flash grid, or perhaps they just want to test the performance cold. They've not had flash system before to test a new system. But we ultimately have all of the products up to the 7300, and there's a slide that talks for the number. And we will also, as well, there is a trial license available for Storage Insights Pro. I know you're hearing a lot more. There's a lot more that's being integrated into Insights Pro with FlashGrid and other things. So the company will actually help you set up Insights Pro with a system if that's what you wish to test, and then make sure that at the end of the 2 weeks, Insights Pro is stood down gracefully, which then makes sure that there are no spurious entries in there if you then go on to use it in a production phase or get a new system in. But you know, the whole idea is that, you know, people can test real-time ransomware detection, for example, management through FlashGrid, anything you want to do. If you want 2 systems on site, ask for 2 systems on site. You can have a 7300 and a 5200, no problems at all. For the right use case, we have ultimate flexibility. If you're a customer and you'd like to test something, let your business partner ideally know, or your IBMer, if that's not the case, I imagine it is, and they can arrange to get you a system using this test drive program. Similarly, you know, if you're a partner and perhaps you either want to get into one customer or you want to get something on your own premises so that you can get familiar with FlashGrid or 3-site replication, then that's something else that this program can do. We can also obviously cover the system to be there so that you've got a system on site. You can call in multiple clients to your premises to show them it, and then the system can go back at the end of that. So really, you know, the previous programs that we probably had were very rigid in terms of their construct and their setup and what they asked of you and what commitments they had. This is completely, I don't want to say an IBM, but you know, it's very, very simple, very clear, very clean cut. So, you know, we have huge success with this program. If people test Flash System, normally they go on to purchase it, which is fantastic. Most of this is in deployments into new clients who've maybe not had a Flash system at all before. But as I say, I'm aware that we are at an inflection point with many of the Flash system features that people have been used to historically are all changing going forwards for the better, but people probably want to test that in their own environments, be that a partner or a customer. We've done 238 of these since Q2 in 2022, which is when we reinvented the program. And you know, you can see the estate here, 9 5045s, 18 5300s, and 8 7300s with a mix of FCMs with 4 petabytes of total capacity. So these aren't rigid systems. You can have a system with 12, 18 terabyte drives. You can ask pretty much for the configuration that you want. They can swap the FlashCore modules around and ship you a system that meets the exact need. They're very good at this. They are a logistics and loan kit company. And so when we look at, I've got a slide that talks about them. When we look at the mix of where we're doing these are the ones from 2024. We've seen a big shift towards Poland has been doing an awful lot of these, and they are having a fantastic time in Flash system numbers and selling Flash system at the moment, which is fantastic. We've seen a bit of a drop-off over the last year, I think, in some of the other markets, but I think we need to do another huge push on this, because hopefully you think in the room that this is something that you can use and leverage either in your own environment or to actually drive opportunities forwards. You know, we realise that we're not a player that everybody has heard of in storage. We're working on addressing that. And we're also aware that, you know, people have not necessarily tried Flash system before. So this is a way of removing the risk, reducing the objections to get them a system to test. But you know, I'd like to see a much more even spread when we look over this program for next year. What I would say is that we have, because of the success of the program here in EMEA and in Europe, we have actually rolled out this program using the same provider into the US as well. So believe it or not, instead of actually doing it locally over there, the systems are actually crossing the Atlantic at the moment for proof of concepts. And it's working quite well. They're adopting it, but it's a really good and flexible way of getting the systems to go where they need to be. Where people have used the program, the feedback is fantastic. You know, outside of the demo pool, yes, this is brilliant, really satisfied with the service, brilliant service from iRent, now Circular IT, in terms of the support that they've given around the systems. But you know, logistics is what you really want when you've got a system going in, and logistics is something they are brilliant for. They've also been brilliant at maintaining the currency of the fleet. So you know, you'll see there, I'm not talking about boxes 5200s that are several years old. The fleet is completely current, and we expect them to keep that up to date as well as new things come out. Key for any of the partners in the room is that, you know, they are a loan and rental company. They don't compete with business partners for new system sales at all. So you'll notice here the various items of their business. We purposely didn't talk to and pick a company that was going to compete with our partners. So any concerns that you've got that they're going to be trying and sell things around you, and they also do not sell the systems that they loan out. So the system that goes in there is on loan. It then goes back to them as the loan provider. If they want to, you know, the customer, you wants to purchase a system, then you do that in the usual way through the business partner with a new system. These aren't designed to be turned around and converted into a point of sale. So, you know, I think when we look at this, you know, I always think it is really simple. We want to dress it down that way. There's 4 steps to success with this. There's one simple form to complete. That is the form. I promised to have a picture. It is really easy. I think we've actually removed a section of this now, so it's actually got smaller. That is sent in not to IBM. It goes to Circular IT, the loan provider. All the details are provided on there. We turn that approval round to fund the loan within 24 hours. So literally one person within IBM, either Havoye or David, signs it off, and that's it. The loan is approved. They'll then discuss with you the logistics about when it can get out there. Typically, what we've seen historically is we're about a 2-week lead time to get the system on site. That's it, 2 weeks on site, but complete flexibility where? It can be on a client site, it can be on a business partner site, it can go to the disti, it can go to an IBM location. We can put it anywhere at all you want, and crucially, 0 cost, no cost to you as a partner, no cost to the local country. That was a problem with previous programs in that we got stuck. Everyone wanted to do it, but maybe the local country didn't have funding for it. This is completely removed, and we have the funding to do all the proof of concepts that you could ever want to. So actually 5 steps, and this is a new one from our partner this month. Not as a customer, but if you're a business partner, then actually if you take up the proof of concept in Q2, then I keep calling them iRent. I can't get used to Circular IT. It's the iRent program. Then they will provide a €50 voucher for any proof of concepts, because we're really trying, as I say, to get that spread of countries. We had the UK and other countries really successful with this. We've seen a slight decline in numbers, and that's not borne out by what we think people really want to test. But as I say, you know, I think I'd love to hear your feedback on the program. We've kind of listened to the fact that the program was complicated before. Hopefully you get the fact that it's really simple and you think you can leverage it. If you've got any feedback, I'd love to hear it. The code here, the QR code, leads to the BP Storage Zone, which is the website that I hope if you're a business partner in the room, you know BP Storage Zone. A very simple place to find a load of information. You just need to sign in with your IBM ID. That will take you to the storage zone, and all the information, including the form, are on there. But I think, you know, in terms of this year in particular, we're at a real inflection point with Flash System. A lot of the features that you've deployed historically are not necessarily going to be there in future versions. There's a lot of considerations for customers to go through. So I think everything is shifting for the better. The new features that are there, policy-based HA, flash grid, are superb. They deliver hugely on some of the things that maybe weren't there in the past, but people are going to want to test them. Hopefully you want to test them. And this program is designed to make sure you've got the tools and the kit to make sure that you can do that. So is there any questions or feedback? Hopefully I've made it incredibly clear and simple, but I'm really keen to hear, because we want to drive this program because we think that when people get their hands on with the kit, they love it. It's simple to use, it's simple to install, it works well, it performs incredibly. So, I'd really like, if anyone in the room can provide any feedback, I'd love to know. Any questions?
So we've got this gentleman from the Netherlands, Martin. Anyone else? Where are other people from? So Netherlands, we need some more numbers on the chart.
We do need some numbers on the chart. Let's go back to the country scores, shall we?
We tried to get 2 systems last year through IBM, not through Iron or Circular IT. But it bounced 6-7 times, and I gave up.
Fantastic. Please try again, because
Yes.
feedback is really, really working.
Yeah.
It's really working. Gentlemen, where are you from? Are you UK? Something to consider? Yes. Gentlemen, where are you from?
UK, I'm an end customer. I tried, I bought 4 5200s.
Okay.
I might go around always begin to look at the new features.
Yep.
Yeah. We'll get you set up with one of these test drives for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, it can be really good working in your system.
From the UK, but I'm work experience with Ridgeworks, actually one of your business partners.
Yeah, it's a great resource. So,
UK distribution space, yes, absolutely can see how we can help both our upskilling of our delivery engineers and also just testing.
Yeah.
Social type activity around the testing functionality and features and things like that nature, so absolutely see the benefit. And yeah, looking into, I cover multiple vendors throughout my role, and yeah, programs are not typically very good, not very friendly, right?
So you've not used it yet, but how does this compare to what you've heard from the other vendors then?
Actively working with some of the other ones, it's hope that you're representative in that particular product area, be it that primary storage vendors, block offering, are they willing to fund it for you?
Yeah.
Individually first, probably not. So secondly, all right, we're going to put a demo dev discount on you, but it still means funding it, right?
Yeah.
Don't come across that very often. So
No.
it tends to become a long, drawn-out process trying to get something that ultimately sputters out.
Yeah.
The same way you were talking, where you just don't end up doing it, and you hope that maybe it happens somehow, or there's an online simulator that you can maybe.
Yeah,
try to fund
exactly,
to
but it's
do
not
similar,
quite
but
as-
it's not really
No.
exactly what you're saying around.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually try it hands-on. And I think actually you've hit on a really interesting one there, which is, yes, for some of the other vendors, this would come out of the seller's ultimately pot of money that they're going to use for any sale. For a business partner, if they charge you, it's going to come out of the business partner's margin. Maybe that cost is going to be passed on to the end client at the end of the day. This is completely invisible to any of the kind of sales process that we go through. So no one's going to incur anything, and it's not going to be passed on to any of you in the room that are a customer, which hopefully is attractive. But yeah, try it. You might like it, I think would be my closing statement. And I'm anticipating a much more full room, because I think Barry is now going to be presenting the roadmap session, aren't you?
Yeah, myself and a few others.
What industries in Poland are taking this up?
Yeah, so
Havoye should be able to.
great kind of a momentum in the last year. They actually have, Poland has like 212 partners.
Partners, very high partner
doing
base.
Flash system, and we see tremendous growth. And we actually converted a couple of Dell partners in the country using things like that. And the good thing is they had a great support from local organization who helped them, because it's very vital for a program like this that when you go into the test drive, you actually have a good testing plan. Because
Yes.
if you just get it for 2 weeks, you're going to be disappointed because it's just sitting there collecting dust. But if the local IBM team actually work with the business partner and the VADs to say, okay, these would be good things to test. You might do this. What is your feedback? What would you like us to put in the testing plan? So I think that would be also very important. And if you want some feedback from the Poland, we can actually hook you up with teams there as well.
No, I was just curious as to what sectors, whether it's distribution, manufacturing.
All over the place. So Poland is seeing a lot of growth in the entire industry. And they also, there's another thing about Poland is a lot of the Ukraine IT is actually in Poland. So that has been also driving some of the...
Right.
But we've seen tremendous results all across the last year. Okay.
Okay. I think I'll give you a couple of minutes before Barry can come and set up. Thank you very much. As I say, just really, drop us a line. Let us know if there's anything you want to see. Let us know if it ever falls short of your expectations. But our experience so far is that it's delivered and probably exceeded everyone's. So that's the intention, to exceed and delight. Thanks, everyone.
So, I don't know how long it typically it's 30 to 40 for the roadmap, and then we'll have like 20 minutes at the end. So,
wait, we don't have things you gotta carry.
Yeah. As long as everyone doesn't talk too much.
Do you mind if I put it towards the centre? Is that fine?
I had a find where that piece of paper.
I can give you another clip. Do you want me to take it?
Take the handheld. Well, because I'm sorry, I just said no on that one. But I'm already plug that back in because I just said no.
Speak into it, not like
No, when I go to use my freaking monitor later, it's not gonna work. So annoying. Oh, no, it's because I just did the thing with the stuff, it's fine, don't worry about it.
Not for now, but in beach. Sorry.
What's the plan for
So I said just jump in when you want.
Yeah, good. Not right in a second, but in beach, something's grumbling over the speakers all the time. Good.
Oh, it's just me. I'll have a look at that. Let me just
I think
get
no, just printed out or whatever, it's not super rich. I think it was a bit annoying in there, sitting in the room listening.
The only thing I think of.
None of the controls seem to have any mutes I could press.
Yeah, I'll have a little look.
Okay.
I reckon I know what it is.
Too late.
The second slide says no photographs, yeah? So I think, are the other sessions
Really?
still going, or should we give it a couple of minutes?
Okay.
We'll see how people come in. I think the idea ask the experts is the second kind of half of this, so we'll probably get a flood in once this.
Second third of this.
I feel like Barry's giving me a hard time today, and I don't understand why. Because I was very nice to him yesterday, and I let him see all the stuff that's coming that he's not supposed to know about.
Blue lights.
Get out. Please.
So, yeah, we're going to go through the roadmap session now. It's going to be a multi-person tag team as we go through. Usual disclaimer in place.
And I'm going to add my developer disclaimer that anything that we tell you now has probably already been changed in the last 5 minutes. So,
So don't,
although we do have product management here, so less so than normal.
Yeah. This is kind of semi-hot off the press in that we, last week, we adjusted it and put everything in place for current best plans, although this being in March is quite a bit earlier than the usual kind of first user group rounds usually happen kind of May, June timeframe, when we've generally solidified up a bit more about what's going to be coming in specific releases for next year. So it's a bit more of a homologous blob as we get to the futures bit, but there are certain things that we already know will be coming in. However, for the purposes of this, we've kind of left it in the futures, but these are all things we're kind of actively working on, or at least have ideas on the designs of how these things are going to be coming along. So usual things, this is going to change. This is best of our knowledge at the moment. Don't base purchasing decisions, etc., based on future items. So we kind of just the kind of family picture. I think Evelyn's going to jump in just a second when we talk about a bit more about the C200. The rest of it's pretty much as was. 5015s and 45s down there, SVC, and everything wonderful flash core at the top.
I do have an example of each of these out in the hallway
Yeah.
if you haven't already seen me there flogging my hardware.
So, release schedule, slightly different for this year from what we've been doing for the last couple of years. So 873 came out or was announced February and was kind of available a couple of weeks ago. I know there are some customers already I was talking to running it, which is good. And then we're not having a second quarter release this year. It's kind of a July-ish timeframe that we'll be having the next release when we are incrementing the first number for the first time in a while. So we're going up to 910 for that next release. And that obviously is an LTS release. So it's kind of wrapping up a lot of the PBHA, PBR, grid, all of those kind of things. And the idea being that this is kind of our first LTS with pretty much all of the grid functionality that we think is kind of necessary to really start using that in anger, and wrapping up a lot of the PBHA enhancements that have been coming. And as we'll see, there's a lot more coming in that release, ticking off a few of the little niggly things that weren't there. Plan for a fourth quarter release as well. And then, as I say, as we move into next year, we've kind of just grouped a lot of this together. There might be one or two we can say this is definitely coming kind of earlier in that year. But as we go through, if you come back in June to the Hersley user group, then we'll have a clearer picture for partners. That one, yeah.
Sorry, users. You talk to your partners.
Yeah.
You can talk to your partner.
So, we'll cover off some of these, and then we'll get to the C200. From a kind of connectivity and platforms point of view, the only other thing, and it's kind of here, but doesn't have an arrow because I think we're ready We've done the things we're maybe waiting for the other part of that support to be ready, and whenever that comes in, we'll have that available.
Do you have an update on that?
No.
Okay. AX.
Like, it's a while away.
Yeah, yeah. And then as we move into next year is when we're going to be looking at next generation of flash core modules coming along, next gen platforms including a new SVC node coming there, and then the next generation of HBAs at 128 gig and 200 gig Ethernet. So going back to the 200, I'll let Evelyn.
Sure. So as we've said in the past, this is kind of your DR bunker, your archival space, and a lot of people have asked, well, at least a lot of sellers have asked, well, what's the difference? You're running FCM4s. So key differences. One, it's a fixed config. So you don't have like ultimate flexibility. You want ultimate flexibility? I'd like to introduce you to the Flash System 5300. If you're looking for sub-millisecond performance, I'd like to introduce you to the 5300, the 7300, or the 9500. This is not that box. This is not your OLTP low latency database box, but this is a fantastic way to ditch all of your spinning rust. Because you get a nice dense box. It's got a lower power profile than the other 2U box, and it is pretty good at chugging. It also has all the features that you love from your FCMs. So it has the ransomware threat detection, it has the inline compression, it has the self-encrypting drives. It's a single pool system, so no data reduction pools. It's just a single pool because this is a DR box, this is an archive box. If it's a compressible data set, it'll be compressed by the FCMs, but we kind of expect that if you're putting Protect or something in front of it, that you're already doing those data reduction services at a higher level. Hopefully no one's like,
Is this one also coming with 64 gig fiber channel?
nope, it is not.
So we generally don't oversubscribe. So there isn't the bandwidth behind the slot to cope with the 64 gig cards. So
Yeah,
that's
but 16 times 32 or 8 times 64, it's the same.
Yes, but we.
One of the things that I'm asking for, it's another check in the box.
I know.
okay.
So we can feed that back into the product management team, but to my knowledge, there's no plan to, again, fixed configs, limited configs for this box. Yes.
To your request, one question is, it's in Storm, you can model it now?
Yep.
Is there any plans from the Spectrum Protect team to put it and model it on a blueprint, just to?
I don't know. I would have to ask one of the Protect guys, and I'll see if I can find Matt or Shelley later about their blueprints.
Are you asking if there's a storage Protect blueprint? for
Yes.
6200?
Yeah.
I mean, is there plans to put one?
Yes.
in
Yes.
place?
Okay.
Yes, 100%.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Cool.
I kind of assume so, but I don't like
Yeah.
signing up other teams for work. 'Cause-
I took care of that
Yeah.
Cool.
a while ago.
Jorge's working on it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, for example, not cardinal configuration, I mean, one full and one half of the
So this is trying to aim for a very specific market segment and then be a highly dense box, right? C for capacity. Yeah, that's a fair feedback. We've
Yeah.
heard it.
If you
I-
need less than a petabyte, then this isn't the box for you.
Yeah. Or if you want to have room to grow later,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
fixed config,
Yeah.
but it means you are paying for it all up front.
start with one less
Yeah.
And so that also brings into then you have, from a development and very boring things that you don't care about that I have to solve. I had to go test array expansion. I go test this, that, and the other. So we made a very conscious choice to make this as simple a config as possible so we get the highest quality, the least amount of time, and keep the cost down.
And I think it's probably true to say, as we move into the future, this class of box we will see potentially more of, or other options of, as we move into next-gen platforms and so on. And maybe there might be a bit more flexibility about what you can put in it. This is kind of a
First step.
There was a kind of a market need specifically that this box fits. So
That's what we were looking for.
Yeah.
But if I find any of you selling this where you should have been selling a sub-millisecond thing and I get a performance ticket, I'm going to come and smack you on the nose with a rolled-up newspaper, because bad. I already warned you. This is not your OLTP workload.
So I mean, if you look at a building, say a 5045 with
Yep.
5 U92s, full of 20 terabyte nearline disks, and the however many U in the rack, 18 U in the rack that you need to get this kind of capacity, this is 2 U. It's probably going to be comparable in price. You can probably pay a little bit more.
Your ownership is going to go down.
But
a
your
ton.
TCO power cooling
Totally agree with you.
Yeah.
But it depends on how many customers we
in that area,
with
yeah.
this kind of
Sure.
Yeah.
So I have.
Just the point of,
Yeah.
just the point of mark.
Yep. So I've been looking at some of our inventory database stuff because we use that. So the other reason to turn on call home is I will look at inventory database that is anonymized to figure out what kind of configs y'all are using. And let me tell you, the guy who's running 7 different D-RAID 1s in the same controller made me so sad. so sad. But I do see configs where someone has an empty 7300 chassis and then a crap ton of 5U92s. Buy that box. Because the nearline performance is going to be outpaced by that, even with the lesser capable hardware. Okay, I kind of wanted to, I don't want to like take the jazz out of it, because this is a cool box that serves a very specific need, but I do want to warn people against just going, I'll buy this one, and when you would have bought a 7300 if you actually needed the latency. Yes?
Is there a thought about taking that one and putting it under an ESS instead of those nightmarish Seagate 104 disk shelves?
So if you're doing a kind of slightly roll your own scale, this would be good capacity storage to put behind it, yeah.
I'm unfortunately not as in tune with the scale plans for what they're doing with their expansions. Obviously, they have the ESS has its own controller roadmap, and we talk because we share the same hardware team. But they've got their own set of things. So again, if you're rolling your own, this would be a good box to put behind a scale box.
And if your Fusion is really taking off and you're needing capacity behind the Fusion with CSI driver, this gives you a way to expand the capacity if you don't need more compute, those kind of things. So,
okay.
Chris.
Well, it's my bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So the last, probably since 8.7.0, has been quite busy for the team. So 8.7.0 was the previous long-term support release and was the final version that supported remote copies. So Metro Mirror, Global Mirror, Volume Mobility, Hyperswap, and I feel I'm missing one, GMCV. And so we made the conscious choice of saying, actually, that this is the final point that we're going to support that, and then we'll be looking at policy-based replication and policy-based HA being the only show in town going forward. So since then, we know there's a couple of gaps, and we're working through addressing those. So the 3Q release back in, I think, September, end of August, September, that sort of time frame, was a one-feature release, really, which was our policy-based HA and policy-based replication, combining that to create a HA plus DR solution, or three-site solution. We followed that up in 4Q with a lot happening in kind of our host attachment space, and that's been a continual theme throughout, particularly the second half of last year. But the 4Q release was iSCSI, starting out with only Red Hat and VMware, I think, and then Hyper-V, Windows servers, and a bunch of other things coming in this 8.7.3 1Q release. But where we are with interop now, if we look at the 8.7.3 release, we have pretty much all of the fiber channel SCSI interop that we're looking at. There's probably a few kind of niche things that we still are missing, but our core operating systems of Red Hat, SUSE Linux, AIX, IBMI is under support, is under score request, but we are approving requests for 7.4 and 7.5. Solaris, Windows, Hyper-V, Z Linux, all of those are now supported with fiber channel SCSI on 8.7.2. On the iSCSI side, a lot of the similar ones are on 8.7.3. We don't actually have a link here, but on the product docs, you can find a link to all the supported operating systems. And it's a always look at the version that you want. Don't look at the 8.7.0 version. Look at the version you want to look at. And it's growing probably monthly at the moment.
So I'll just add as well, something that caught me and one of my partners out is that because Windows no longer have Hyper-V as a version of the operating system, it's basically Windows Server, and a feature of Windows Server is Hyper-V. In SSIC, you'll see 2016 and 2018, I think, or whatever they are, listed as separate Hyper-V OSs. Where you see Windows 2020 or whatever the latest one is, Server, that includes Hyper-V because it's just a feature of that OS level. So don't think, oh, they don't support Hyper-V. Just as a point of order because of what we were talking about, VMware and things. I know Microsoft are jumping in there and going, here, have this for free. So.
But don't confuse the HA page with, so don't go to SSIC for the HA interrupt matrix. Go to the docs for the product.
Yeah.
About your niche system that you mentioned before, I see IBMI as an RPQ for a full system replication, for a full system HA, but what about Power HA?
So Power HA for IBMI, and I think with IBMI, I think we're very close. AIX is a bit further behind, so they're not under us as a development team's control, so we have to work with our partners to that, and we're working on their schedules. So as much as we would like that to come out tomorrow, they have a roadmap. We're kind of working to get that into their roadmap. So I don't have a date, but I would like to see it soon.
Thank you.
So looking at this year, there's a few things that perhaps I think I'm actually missing from this. That in the first quarter release of this year, so the 8.7.3 release, there were some improvements to how we handle certificates, as you can see there, but there was also, it might be in the snapshot section, around highly available snapshots. So the ability to take a snapshot, safeguarded or otherwise, and have that on both pairs of systems and being able to restore in place, perfect, thank you, Barry, be able to restore in place without any impact to HA. Now, as we look forward to the long-term support release, which is this blue bit down here, we're looking at a number of gaps that we know about, and we're hoping that this 9.1.0 release is actually going to address many of those. We're talking about things like the ability to expand replicated volumes, both those using HA, using replication, or both. Ability to rename our volumes, our volume groups, our hosts, and also our host clusters as well. That will be coming in the 9.1.0 release. So really trying to get to where we want to be for our management constructs, as well as being able to move volumes between volume groups within the same partition. You can't move a volume to a volume group in a different partition. It must be in the same partition. But that's really closing some of the management gaps that we have at the moment that we are fully aware of and want to resolve. Then we start looking forward to the 4Q release. Is it 4Q or 3Q?
It's 4Q.
4Q. 4Q release. The kind of the big piece up there is really about NVMe. So until fairly recently, NVMe didn't really support as a protocol namespaces, i.e. volumes, being presented from independent storage controllers. There was an improvement to the NVMe spec called dispersed namespaces that came out a year or so ago. So we're looking to exploit that to be able to support high availability and also partition migration for NVMe hosts. So that's going to be, like we did with SCSI, it's going to be a phased deployment as we work through our interop. We're not going to defer it to say, actually, let's go and do 6 or 12 months worth of interop testing to qualify every operating system. What we'll do is we'll release it probably starting with VMware, given their direction with high-performance multipathing, giving significant improvements. We'll probably start there, and then we'll look at other operating systems and start qualifying them over a series of releases, just so we can get things out there sooner. We're also looking at things like being able to split a partition. So today we can merge 2 partitions. We can't undo that. So we want to kind of complete our partition language, as we'd refer to it, and say what you can do, you can undo. And that will basically say, take these sets of volume groups and hosts and create a new partition from it. And without impacting HA, if it is an HA partition. We need to think about how that's going to work if the partition is replicated, as there's some complexities around there. So we just need to figure a few pieces out there. And then also things like being able to modify the host ports associated with a host definition. So really kind of a lot of these managements kind of nice kind of nice to haves, maybe not mission critical, but certainly things that we think are certainly quality of life improvements, particularly on things like host port management. When we start looking at next year and beyond, there's lots of things here. A lot of them are, we don't really know when they'll appear. Certainly, there's a priority order to some of the items that we do have. So one of the highest priority items that we are going to be working on is a synchronous version of policy-based replication. So in the portfolio, that will give us policy-based HA for HA between two independent systems. We'll be able to do asynchronous replication with policy-based replication. We'll be able to do synchronous replication with policy-based replication, and we will be able to combine those. So we'll have an HA plus DR solution, and that DR solution can be HA plus sync DR or HA plus async DR. We're also hoping to be able to mix and match synchronous and asynchronous within the same partition to the same target system. So we can have a variety of different RPOs operating on different volume groups in that partition. At the moment, our async solution, when we are doing 3-site and only doing 3-site, is forced into our kind of a high bandwidth journaling mode. We also want to bring the low bandwidth support to that. So that's what we refer to as our cycling mode, if you ever look in any of our red books around that. So that's being able to cope both kind of like those like 80 millisecond plus round trip times. The other big piece that we are fully aware of, and we really want to, and we're working on designs at the moment, is how do we support a host having both HA and non-HA storage at the same time. So the initial design point that we had 2 years ago was that we were going to protect the host, and the host was the most important thing. And if we say the host is HA, everything attached to it is HA. We have heard the feedback to say actually some flexibility is required, particularly in virtualized environments where, for example, we have some data stores which are kind of like a gold tier where maybe we want to have that HA plus DR, and maybe a lower tier when actually they're not paying as much, we're not going to give them the same level of protection. So no HA there. So we're looking at those solutions there. We've got a few ideas, and we'll be starting to look at that pretty soon, to be honest. And then the big item that we would like longer term is also the ability to what we refer to have as an I-beam, so kind of HA pair and HA pair connected together with kind of DR replication, be that synchronous or asynchronous replication. So effectively you end up with a 4-site solution with 4 copies of your data. You fail over to DR, you still have HA. We're also, it's not here as well, but on that kind of long future list over there, we're looking at what we can do with maintaining a level of HA while performing migrations. So one of the things we have at the moment is if we're doing a partition migration, we can't do that with HA. We want to be able to avoid a big hit to HA and losing that protection whilst performing a migration. So that's one of the other things that we are having that kind of futures bucket over there. Any questions about any of that?
One over here.
Does the volume expansion apply for D2 pools as well?
Yes, it does apply to DRP and standard pools, yes. It will be expansion only, not shrinking volumes.
All you weird shrink volume guys. You need to have words.
For those of you who do, for those of you who do use the CLI or the API, as part of all these pieces of work here, we are bringing a new CLI to it, which is a CHV volume. And rather than having to work out how much do I want to expand the volume by, we'll just ask you what size do you want the volume, and just say CHV volume dash size, I don't know, 5 terabytes, and it makes the volume 5 terabytes. It works out the delta. And that also goes for if you're using scripts, it will be, that's how you move volumes between volume groups, and that is how you do expansion. It's a CHV volume dash size. And there's another one as well. Oh yes, renaming. That'll be a CHV volume action rather than a CHV vdisk action.
So I think the only use case that we had for shrink was because of flash copy.
Shrink is an excellent way to destroy data.
Yes, so if you had a volume and you wanted to make it the target of a flash copy, but it wasn't exactly the same size, you could use shrink to get it the right size so you could actually reuse the volume. There was no other use case whatsoever for it.
So typically, once you've expanded a file system, it's going to go and write some super blocks towards the end of the disk. If you then shrink them, you've just destroyed some of your super blocks. File systems get grumpy. So as Barry said, that's one way of getting around some of the kind of flash copy problems. Nowadays, to get around with that, we can just clone the volume, and perhaps that's a simpler way, and it keeps the file system in an intact way.
You don't have to worry about mappings and target volumes anymore.
Yep.
Okay, cool, thanks. So on the snapshot stuff, Chris covered some of that already. One of the big things that we introduced at the end of last year was being able to restore from a snapshot onto a production copy of a PBR volume. There's obviously no point restoring onto the DR copy or the recovery copy, because that's now going to be inconsistent with your production. And also being able to restore onto a PBHA volume, and essentially that's going to restore it onto the active management site or the active management location, and that will then obviously get synchronized across.
That does also include refreshing a thin clone that's replicated as well.
Okay, yep. That we are planning to backport to 870.
But don't tell the support architect, he'll murder us.
We never add function to PTS, do we?
We'll warn
there
you
are
a bit
very
rather
good
than that one.
reasons for backporting that to 870, because it's a mechanism you need if you want to do semi-non-disruptive migration out of legacy replication. There are ways, and look out for a blog post fairly soon that I'm working on that describes how to, for example, take a hyperswap and turn it into a PBHA with minimal outage. There is a point in time where you have to kind of stop it, but if you can keep refreshing the copy that's going in there, you can get that time window down where you have to stop the application to a minimum point. But that needs 870 that's running hyperswap or that's running Metro, Global, whatever those functions are, to have that capability of refreshing onto something that you can then send to something that's at a much higher code level on these new features.
So it's worthwhile adding that we can convert from a hyperswap system today to policy-based HA without any application downtime, but it does require a complete resync of HA. What Barry's describing is to maintain HA throughout pretty much the entire migration until that cutover.
So Chris mentioned about the coordinated snapshot and restore with PBHA. So this is essentially creating HA snapshots. So if you create a snapshot, once you've turned this capability on for the partition, then if you create a snapshot on one side, the equivalent snapshot will get created on the other side.
We will be demoing this tomorrow.
Yes, okay.
This is not the default side.
It's not the default. You have to say, I want this capability to...
It won't be the default on upgrade, but if you configure high availability on, and both systems running 873 or later, it is the default.
Okay.
So if you want to have independent snapshots at both sides, then you can disable it. It is really simple to disable.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, you can turn it off. Now,
but if you do disable it, you can't restore without disrupting HA.
You can't restore without what?
Disrupting HA. It needs to resynchronize the deltas.
So when you restore, if it's disabled, when you restore, all of the data that gets restored onto the active copy has to be then mirrored across to the other copy. If it's enabled, we can restore from both sides at the same time and keep HA, keep consistency of the HA. Now you'll see there's kind of two of these, part one and part two. This is a policy that is applied locally. And what that means is you apply that at the active management site. It's now going to trigger whenever you create a snapshot, I'll create one on the other side. If the active management site fails over or you swap it, if you don't have the same policy applied at that site, it's not going to do it. Or it doesn't have the policy to say, trigger this on a schedule. This replicates the policy. So if you apply it at one side, the same policy is available there. So today, if you're going to use this, attach the policy to the partition on this side or to the volume group on this side, attach it the same policy, or create the policy, attach the same style of policy. So if it fails over and becomes the active management site, the scheduler will now trigger here. So the scheduler only kicks off on the active management site. As we get to that 9.1, restore from a thin clone to PBR, are you saying that's already there, or was that different?
So restoring to a thin clone for PBR came out last year.
Okay.
Restoring to a thin clone for PBHA was also last year. That isn't an HA restore. That is disruptive for HA. It would need to resynchronize.
But this is, right.
Yeah.
There's also this here, and this is kind of questionable whether we do this or not at this time frame, but the plan is if you create a new system on 9.1 and beyond, flash copy essentially will be kind of disabled.
So the old flash copy
the old
menus in the GUI, in the UI, and the old command lines.
However, by this point, pretty much everything that you want to do is there in snapshots, apart from maybe incremental, but.
But so I think the thought here would be the same way that we treated the quote unquote legacy stuff last year.
Yeah.
So it'll be a toggleable
You can
switch.
turn it back on if you need to. Yeah.
The same thing we did for remote copy.
Yeah.
As we get into the fourth quarter release, increasing the snapshot capacity. So on a single system, essentially, by paging the bitmaps of active snapshots in and out, we can then reduce the amount of memory we require to store those active bitmaps, therefore vastly increase the capacity we can manage.
It's like 10x in some cases,
10x type,
depending on the platform.
Hundreds of petabytes potentially of
This
snapshots.
is capacity, not number.
Not number. Yeah.
Do you see that across the SVC as well as Splash system?
Yes, I mean this is going across all of the. It's part of the code essentially. So.
Yeah, I was trying to think if I knew what the number was, and I don't remember what it was for SVC.
I don't think it's on the entry-level flash systems, though.
No.
I think it's only
no,
on-
no, no, no. It is on.
Okay.
It is on all of them. It's just it scales.
It scales, yeah.
5030 doesn't have.
I'm not including the SAS system.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Entry-level flash systems.
Yeah.
SAS.
SAS is dead to everyone.
NVMe. Buy a 5300. Talk to me about buying a 5300.
You're like Gareth, one of my sellers in Melbourne. He said to me, I don't get out of bed for less than a 5300. PBHA, thin clone of a single volume.
We are trying to bring that into the 9.10 release. So it is very tentative, but we would like to be able to bring that into the 9.10 release, but it will not be refreshable in the 9.1 release.
Okay.
Stop letting people know ahead of time. Just surprise them.
So we talked about that, and then obviously futures looking to increase the numbers of snapshots. So once we kind of unlock the capacity, it makes sense that we can then start adding more and more snapshots. So typically
And that would be per grid member.
per system.
So not
IO.
the grid scale out. This is a per block.
So 32 million snapshots in the grid.
And I can never remember what the catch-up async stuff is.
Right. So this is mainly for policy-based HA at the moment is where we have our snapshots, and we can only take a snapshot. Both systems of HA is established at the time that the snapshot is taken. It effectively says we're about to take a snapshot. They both agree they're about to take a snapshot, and then in a sequence of IOs go, this is the last IO, and the next one is in the snapshot, and they both can coordinate that process and agree. What it can't do is say that if HA was not established, say that one of your data centers was near Heathrow and had a fire.
I get a slight shiver when someone says Heathrow.
Change this.
Do we change?
Say that Gary loses 75 hours.
But what we can't do is say that if we took a snapshot on our other data center, when HA reestablishes, we won't replay that snapshot. That's what that is. That also brings some interesting technologies, because then we can actually say, I can then take a snapshot on my production system, and my async replica can also then catch it up at a later point in time. So that's really what that's saying, is basically saying that if I had a snapshot that I was taking with HA that wasn't established, we can catch it up and replay it. And also, we can also then optionally enable it for async, such that if you're doing application-consistent snapshots, you can actually get application-consistent snapshots on your DR system as well.
And next time we do this, I promise to have a picture to draw, because that was a lot.
I can do some doodles if I find a whiteboard.
That's fair.
Okay. On the cybersecurity side of things, obviously we've got continual ongoing updates happening to the inferencing model. As we get into the release in July, looking at increasing the certificates so we per use, in the sense of some certificates you want to have for encryption, some of them you want for management aspects and so on. So rather than having just a system level certificate, you can have more of a separation as to what the certificates are being used for. Removing the need to activate the encryption license as well, so not having to go and type in the silly number and get another silly number back and put it in, and eventually you've got encryption running. And that allows us to start turning encryption on by default if we don't have to go and do that for the geographies that we allow that to happen. Wiperware, exfiltration of data, these are all things that we think the ransomware detection can actually detect in time. And then as we go through into the future stuff, more enhancements on how we're doing the two-person integrity checking. Lots of people have been asking for it. It'd be nice if I could actually authorize specific commands or different things. So there's various things we're looking at in that area.
The hot enable is a cool one, but so basically, like if you already created your pool and you go, oh wait, no, I wanted it to be encryption, and right now you have to tear it down and rebuild it or migrate.
Yep.
This should allow you to turn it on only for the NVMe devices that are self-encrypting, because of the way the keys are handled. Otherwise, we'd have to re-encrypt with the key. So this is an NVMe only statement.
I'm getting the signals on the side.
I'm giving you guys another half-hour session tomorrow to go through the rest of this and repeat if necessary.
Boo.
So this is an Ask the Experts event for all of storage. So as much as I love you flash system people, I'm going to have to be fair to my other experts. So for our other experts,
You guys are cool with us taking the rest of the time, right? No, sorry. Hi, Chris.
We have Michael Frankenberg from DSAK. We have Brandon Rand from RCEF, and then we have our commentary for Fusion. So if there's anything you ever wanted to ask about the IBM storage portfolio, take your chance and ask it now. It's very rare you get all of these people.
We also have his backup, Carlos and Andy.
Ask the most difficult question that comes to them. We will acknowledge it by email and send you the prize.
But don't forget Defender.
Where's Shelley?
Yeah, so I don't recognize her without a cape and a mask.
Defender, if you're in the room.
That's a very own closed session.
I cut you off. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Does anyone want to start us off? Yes.
Thank you.
So, thank you for all of you being up front. Great target.
Where's Matt? Where's Matt?
So I keep hearing how we're definitely incorporating more and more stuff and other tools, better utilization, and all that good stuff. What happened to Ansible?
Oh, I want to look at Sally for Ansible.
Before we come out with the flash system anyway, new Ansible modules every quarter. We keep that all current with all of the latest features that we put into flash system. So if you want to configure PBR, you can do that with Ansible. You want to do PBHA, you want some help migrating off Global Mirror onto PBR, we've got sample playbooks for that. So just make sure you keep your eye on the flash system Ansible Galaxy connection, and you'll see something updated probably in the next couple of weeks actually. For a 1Q release.
So that's
So were you specifically asking those Ceph and some of the other products, or
are you you guys, you have Ansible?
Let's hear a little bit more about the question.
It's just because being from the customer side, we can never standardize on something. We did test Ansible.
The choice between Coke and
So yeah, we never standardized on anything, and hearing more stuff. One thing we did try out is Ansible because it integrated extremely well, and we were able to torture some other solutions, non-IBM, and that's why I was wondering what happened to Ansible.
It's there and supported. Right.
If we'd have been allowed more time in the roadmap, there was a whole slide about it.
Sorry, other experts who want to talk about non-virtualized things.
I mean,
I blame Chris.
Yeah, so there's Ansible
come back
playbooks
tomorrow.
for Ceph, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that you can do.
Yeah.
We have Ansible playbooks for Scale, for GPFS as well, right? So again, the whole Ansible or Terraform framework, now with the acquisition of HashiCorp as well, right? That's integral to what kind of we want to do in the products, a repeatable process, whether you're doing installation and then, looking at the Terraform exploits for deploying in cloud kind of environments as well, right? the as a service kind of things that we've sort of been doing as well may kind of play off of some of that. Right?
Yeah, so I think from a support standpoint, it's supported across pretty much the entire product set within IBM storage. Now, further integrations is some areas that we're looking at in terms of roadmap items to be able to integrate some of the Ansible and Terraform, particularly, not so much in the more recent announcements, but Ansible and Terraform definitely are some additional integration points that we're looking at, particularly as the intersection with OpenShift, right? So more to come there, but from a support standpoint, I'm not aware of any areas or items that are unsupported across our portfolio with Ansible. So definitely, we have playbooks across the board.
As new features come along, the nice thing is that the Ansible modules are not tied to we're going to release this in whatever quarter. So there might be a little sort of lag, but then the module will come out and support that new feature. We try to get it
I mean,
as
to be
close
fair,
as possible.
the Ansible module's going to be there before most of y'all update it.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, true. And it's all there on GitHub anyway. If it's not there, you can go and code it yourself.
So I think we've actually had some people say, I coded this up, and then we'll look at it, and we might include it in the Galaxy one as well, just to make life easy.
We don't share.
Anyone else have a good question? That was a good question. You get a free Coke. Yes?
If I can, more than a question, I have
Oh, sorry, we're waiting for the guy with the mic. I apologize, we're so mean.
Thank you. More than a question, probably is a problem. Again, Power HA. We have a situation with an SVC, / cluster, and PBR. So we have volume groups, and I would like to take safeguarded snapshots, okay? Or at least to take snapshots. But the Power HA only knows the language of flash copies for making backups. So they cannot coexist. And this blocks me to go on the upgrade of the SVC. Any answer on that?
Certainly that's something we are aware of. We are working with the Power HA teams for both AIX and IBMI to get support for the newer technologies, PBR, PBHA, volume group snapshots, and so forth. Carlos, do you know what the dates are for those? Putting you on the spot, sorry. No, okay. But was no, I think it's definitely. I think IBMI is close. I think AIX is further away.
IBMI tends to be pretty close. I know they support most things. I think, but obviously you're wanting to do it on AIX.
At least for the snapshots.
Yeah.
Well, I'll see if I can find out. So.
Thank you.
But yeah, heard, understood, working on it. We'll try and give you a date.
I don't think I need this, but okay. So it was actually a question I had for scale, and one of the reasons is that a lot of the enclosures that you have, especially on the ESS, where you have it has had a bumpy ride, right? Meaning the Seagate enclosures, and we just saw the C200, with flash drives and being a nearline. Wouldn't it be a good idea that the ESS product group talked with the flash system guys that are trying to remove all nearline drives and perhaps do a little bit of product mingle, and instead of sourcing them from Seagate and getting numbers of 0 and 1 wrong and stuff like that?
Okay, this is NDA. Yes, so absolutely, right? So again, there is a collaboration between the flash system and the scale system team that we're trying to do. We tried it on the 6000, but it didn't work for the flash system, right? Next generation wise, right, it's going to be great because flash system, scale system, SAF, it's going to be like one common hardware platform across them all, right? Giving you choice, right, in the scale kind of environment, right? We did a lot of lessons learned with the 4U106 and Seagate. A lot of lessons learned with the 4U102 at Barcelona with foam. And then now with the 4U91, the thing we've kind of learning now in Jülich, right, with that one is it's actually capable of more than it actually is done. We kind of undesigned it, but the problem is that we designed that enclosure to deal with dual actuator hard drives, to be able to support hammer drives in the future as well. So, we believe that HDD still has a choice in terms of the scale system technology, But trying to use a common hardware platform, long run, 2026, 7, it's going to get a lot better from that kind of platform. What we're doing on the scale system this year, in the second quarter, is the 6000 is going to have an option for 30 and, it has FCM today, and you can do it today, FCM4. But we're going to give you 30 and 60 terabyte QLC options in the 6000 platform. So you can do 24 TLC and 24 QLC in the 6000 platform in Q2. And then later this year, we're bringing a JBOF to market. It's Bluefield 3, basically 4 Bluefield 3s on there. And with that one, we got a lot of interesting things we can do because we can run scale on the ARM processor on there. I just was at GTC, and across from the IBM booth was Kioxia folks, and they had a 120 terabyte QLC kind of drive as well, right? So, you know, this larger site, we'll be able to maybe talk about 50 petabytes of flash, of QLC flash in a rack at the end of this year. But we're doing things for the short term and what we're doing in scale. But the long term, like I said, absolutely flash system, scale system, and NSAF will have I hate using this term, a fungible platform that you could basically swap things in and out, right? This is...
Call it composable.
Yeah. Well, we'll see, but that's the goal.
Thank you.
Sure.
You heard it first.
Done all, Rush?
Can you tell us about the future of the product's copy data management and the copy services management within the context of the new changes for storage virtualization?
Shelley's coming.
Shelley's coming. She looks excited.
Okay, so let's dig into that a little bit more. So I just want to make sure. So you're talking about copy data management, and you're talking about copy services management.
Components of the Storage Defender.
Yes, yes, there are components. So remember, Storage Defender is actually, in essence, in my opinion, a very cool licensing model, and there are many components inside there. Those capabilities inside Defender are all still there, right? They all still exist. You may or may not take advantage of them in a Defender license. CDM and CSM are both there, what shall I say? They both have a roadmap. I think it's going to depend on what you want. Now, that being stated, we realize that we probably need to figure out how to, what did somebody say? Mingle? Somebody say the word mingle a little bit? We probably realize that we probably need to figure out how we want to address that space, right? So CSM has certain capabilities very targeted at the DS8. By the way, who can tell, no IBMers, anybody remember the first name of CSM? No IBMers. Ready?
Yep, TPC replication.
TPC for replication, okay. So that went over to the DS8, and the DS8 team is actually working on that. So they kind of own that now as a product, although we sort of own it as well.
Yeah,
CDM, yeah. Right. Okay, storage, so storage virtualized you can do with either one. It depends on what you want. So CSM is not going to probably be the place where you have much in the way of application awareness. CDM is going to be application aware. The other thing that you'll see in CDM is that we can put Sentinel, and in fact the Sentinel license includes CDM, and that's where you'll get the scanning, right, of the safeguarded copies. Those are application aware, application specific.
So, Shelley, is it safe to say our desire,
yes,
I think hopefully meets your desire, which is to have one product that does it, does it all, no?
Okay, well that's where I thought you were going.
Features which are within CDM.
So when's it going to support PBR and
Okay.
Which are now completely squeezed about the
Okay. So there is a roadmap for obviously for CDM. I don't think we've got it here. Absolutely, I feel your pain. I'm getting beaten up by one of my clients on a very regular basis because they can't move away from 8.7 because they want to use PBR. So we get you, we hear you. Yes, there is a plan to do it. It's not immediate. There are bigger problems with CDM that need to be solved first. Once they're solved, then that's coming. So yes, totally take valid point, and we hear you. Yeah.
The roadmap for CDM is bigger than I have ever seen it. And part of that is because of the desire for a resiliency set, and part of that comes from I can't tell you how many customers and IBMers I've had in the last few months tell me, well, I don't need to scan that safeguarded copy. It's clean because it's immutable, right?
You immutably wrote some
Okay.
bad data.
Okay, Apple P. Okay, so this new desire to have that scanning ability through Sentinel has created a robust set of things that we need to do in CDM. That help? Okay. Well, for now, we can talk about it later. If you want to see it, we can work on that on the side. I didn't bring a roadmap for that.
Yeah.
Okay. That'll be fine. We can talk about that offline right after. Over drinks and nibbles. Okay.
Maybe, I mean, if it's something that you have, if we're going to do a roadmap, the rest of the roadmap at some point tomorrow, we could incorporate a bit of that.
We could maybe talk
Yeah.
about that
Yeah.
that tomorrow. I can get it from the guy next door who's
Yeah.
currently doing a demo. He has the latest copy. I will ask him to perhaps leave me one, and we can cover that tomorrow at 4:30 with the extra. We can take a look at that. Thanks. It's a good question.
You know?
At the moment, at the moment with the SVC, we are used to host clusters, right? So we now move it to PBHA. We have to use separate hosts too. So how is going to be the conversion to host clusters after we have PBHA?
So host clusters for PBHA is coming in the next release.
No, how's
Yeah,
it
but how
convert?
we start with, how are we going to
Yeah, so-
migrate from separate hosts to host clusters?
The same way that we did originally. So we can take the separate hosts and create a host cluster from them, and we'll convert all the common mappings to be a shared
Okay.
mapping. So we're trying to make that. Yes. So certainly the rules of SCSI IDs need to be correct. So we can't convert mappings if it's mapped to host A with ID 4 and the same volume is mapped to host 2
Yeah, okay.
with a
Makes
different
sense.
complete.
So if they're the same rule.
Anything that is compatible will automatically be converted to be a shared mapping.
Okay. Next question. I have some customers, every half a year I have to explain about capacity when they are using FlashCom modules behind the SVC, because they are looking at the drives itself, they're looking at the flash system itself, and they're looking at the SVC. And every time you are confused about the capacity, usable, effective capacity, raw capacity, they always got confused comparing with other vendors.
I fixed it.
Yeah, we fixed
I
it.
fixed it in June. I fixed it. Okay. Well, not me and Philip are.
It's
Can I have
already
that?
fixed,
Can I
eh?
explain? Real quick?
I just need to.
So I believe the issue is, let me repeat it and make sure I really actually did fix it, is that the standard for SVC licensing is now always physical after RAID of the device. Always. Okay? So if you have an old GUI, it might show you effective. I mean, it might show you, right, the effective. What you really want is the physical usable. So the new GUIs will show that as well. So I think that's one problem, that it complains about the licensing. Is that accurate?
It's not about licensing,
You're right.
about the different numbers it's showing.
Yeah.
So
Right.
if you get the FlashCom module, it's giving a number, right?
Right. So watch this. Well, I was trying to give a little, while he got this chart.
watch the
Here's a
sides.
new chart.
Sorry, yeah,
Everybody
you need to look
park.
at the sides because we're all
Everybody
covering the
move.
screen.
Everybody
yeah.
park.
Look
Okay.
at the sides.
So we finally all agreed that Andy and I were right the whole time. And physical and logical are the two things that make sense. What do I physically have?
Right.
So I've bought a bunch of 20 terabyte drives. That means I've got 100 terabytes of physical after RAID. Oh, it's physical, yeah. What am I pretending that I have? What could I potentially use? What is the addressable of the FCMs? Well, that's a logical number. So from 873, everything is synced up. Insights, Flash, Grid, everything is reporting physical and logical once you get to 873, okay?
I think there's a caveat on this. It only applies if you've only got FCMs. I think if you have other things.
So
it
if you got FCMs, then it's this. If it's not FCMs, you don't get the logical. Okay, doesn't make sense. Now, basically, this is showing the question you're trying to answer is twofold. One for licensing.
Right.
Second one is, am I going to run out of space? You can run out of space in either place. You can run out of physical space, just written, compressed, and filled it up, or you can get really good compression and run out of logical space before you run out of physical space. So the question is answered by those two pictures. If it's green, you're okay. If it goes red, you're getting close to running out of one or other of them. This is then spread across all of the things. You have no idea. I mean, Carlos probably spent how much of your life over the last year in meetings, going through and explaining to people.
He had a mullet earlier. It was crazy.
He had a full head of hair last year.
And so when you're doing your licensing structure, right? So we're going to point you, right? We're going to point you to here. Okay, so this is going to be, for those pieces. Yeah. You also can see through Storage Insights, right? You can also see it there. So if you're talking about SVC licensing structure, right? That's there. We did finalize on that in June, so that's there. That's actually written. It used to be you had to get Shelley's permission to do that. We don't have to do that anymore. In case someday I'd like to.
So additional from a monitoring, am I running out of space thing? I think also if you've got SI, there's some tools in there that help demystify a little bit of the SVC layer a bit. No, okay. For the capacity stuff, but fair enough. If you're not happy with that, that's fair. We'll get that feedback.
The point about the logical configuration, is that a sliding scale based on what my current data reduction is, or theoretically 3 to 1 on?
So logical means that is how much has been consumed as far as the host is concerned. So how much does the host think it's written? If you filled a volume that's 10 terabytes, I've consumed 10 terabytes of that logical space. That could compress down to whatever, it doesn't matter. So that is actual host written capacity into there.
But you're looking about the available.
So I'm talking about the logical
usable. Sorry, the technical people agree. Technical people disagree.
The logical usable, right? That number is based on the FCM theoretical.
So the answers to all the logical questions, the physical questions, there are 20 different answers depending on which of the 20 different configs you have. Rather than try and do it in here, come and find me and tell me which config you have, and I can give you the easy mode for your config.
So that is your theoretical, though, yes.
I can answer it. I mean, I gave it in my presentation earlier on FCM. The logical capacity is how much we can actually map on the drive.
Yeah.
So it is a fixed limit based on our LPT table size.
Yeah, but what the logical volume capacity is reporting is that's what it is, but what it's telling you is different.
Because we do over
depending on lots of other things.
Yeah, so this is where you then get the logical breakdown. So I get what I said was wrong. That's what's written by hosts. That's been consumed by snapshots. You might have some other reserved space as well being consumed if it's fully allocated.
Because thin provisioning doesn't care how much actual FCM backup capacity.
The last one is then provisioned.
Yeah.
And this shows what you've over-provisioned out of that logical capacity. So with those 3 breakdowns, you can answer everything, but really it's the out of space things we were trying to resolve in the, am I physically going to run out of space, or am I logically going to run out of space?
Okay. By the way, I'm enjoying actually all the FCM questions on the block side, because I want to talk to the SM people about what we're seeing on the scale side. There's a lot of fun things we're seeing there.
Welcome to the club.
That I'm not. Yeah.
Can I grab that real quick? I want to clarify something, because Thomas and I had a side conversation, and I had forgotten about that. It's a licensing question. It's shocking. So if you had under SVC IBM flash and doing compression, I was always able to give you a permission to go by physical. Yep. If it was non-IBM, you had to do logical. Yep. In June, it's now IBM or non-IBM. It's all physical all the time, no matter the vendor. And for all you sales reps in the room, please don't beat me up about that. Okay? So it's all one thing now. So that was a point I think we needed to bring up. So thank you for remembering that. Yes. Where do we go?
Short question. Addressable space on the FCMs stay 3 to 1, or are you increasing that number?
At the moment, it's 3 to 1. What might be happening in next generation ones might be different.
And so not in this room, but if you find Tim with a drink in his hand, he can tell you all the details. So it's not on the roadmap that we are willing to talk about.
in a forum.
Yeah.
But isn't there an exception on the C200? It's not, it's there, it's back
It's still 3 to 1.
Oh, sorry. So the FCM provisioning capacity has not changed on the C200. What they don't have is a capacity savings guarantee, which is a warranty statement or a consumption
We're
statement.
literally just exposing another capacity for the drive, which is this raw number to match what other vendors report as a fictitious number.
I hope we didn't steal your thunder, but Tim, maybe you'll get some drinks. I don't know.
Yeah.
Here's one here.
I have a question. The 3 to 1 is an interesting guarantee. However, if my customer has specific performance requirements, why he needs an FS 9500, which guarantees can IBM give?
Oh, you put it up?
I didn't do it.
I'll remember the question. So the question I have is about the guarantee on compression on the FlexCore modules, which is interesting. However, if I have to prove to my customer how much capacity he can, within its own performance boundaries, can put on a system, which guarantees can IBM give?
So the performance of compression with FCMs
Yes.
is the same as fully allocated performance. There's not a performance penalty with your flash core.
Well,
That's the value of it.
We are working on a large RFP which went out, and there's no ability to go to 1, 2, 3 on a performance. So, and it has been modified.
Okay, I see what you mean. So if you're putting 3 times as much data on the drive, the IOPS density has gone up 3 times essentially, or has gone down by to a third. So, I mean, if someone's really needing that amount of, 100,000 IOPS off a single drive, it's an interesting use case. Maybe we should have a chat after, but yeah.
The guarantees, from a guarantees perspective, I would lead to the product managers in the team. From a performance behavior, I would recommend modeling at a system level because it's the system level is not the same as the individual drive performance.
The last thing I want to offer to a customer a promise that we can't make. Because then we will.
That's fair, which is why modeling is so important and being able to. And actually, if you want, POCs are also really great if that's possible.
I'd also very carefully read the agreement. It's the 3 to 1 agreement, because
I think we have to do a special on this. Thank you.
I guess I kind of have not an answer for that perfectly, but the idea would also be that each drive gives more performance to the system. So instead of harmonizing on XXL drives, perhaps expand the amount of drives, will expand the amount of IOPS and bandwidth on the system. The more drives, the merrier. So basically, or go for an upscale model, right? Move up from a 7300 to a 9500. And I haven't I tested all the controllers on the market and have not seen anything beat a 9500. So I wonder where they buy their storage from if they're saying that's too slow. So that's gonna be a wonder. Yeah.
I need some more scale questions. I don't want Chris thinking he got a free ride.
I think somebody needs a fusion question.
Or fusion or sub.
I don't know those guys as well. Sorry.
No, we did.
You know what? You were so quiet. I forgot you were here.
Fine. I just saw the pixels here. We do the same. So all good.
Sorry, it's again a flash system question. It's regarding the snapshot policy. Do you have in mind, or if it will be possible in the future to have different policies for snapshot? I mean, I have customers asking for
as in I want this schedule and this schedule.
Yeah, for example, different schedule in the weekend than weekdays.
Carlos? Multiple snapshot policies? So I don't think we have it. We don't have it in the native.
On the same,
So our answer for that is we're trying to do the simple stuff in the product, but if you want multiple schedules, you can have CSM or something like that do the secondary schedule. So we're not necessarily trying to solve everything inside the box. So yeah, the CSM can let you have the more complex schedules on top as well. So I think that's our basic answer.
Have a scale question?
Yes, scale question.
But it's kind of leaving over to flash system again. but yeah, no, it's a scale. So you have really nice snapshot schedules where you can kind of have a schedule for very frequent snapshot that is then adopted by daily and then weekly, and the same snapshot kind of transition into the other schedule, right? So you have a schedule where the snapshots are simply streamlining. Flash system doesn't have that. You have a snapshot, and then you have a weekly one, and then you kind of cannot transpose a snapshot schedule across. Or is that available now? No. Yeah, I thought so.
That was I'm agreeing with you.
I just mentioned that you should talk with the guys, but they really need to talk to you about how doing snapshots, because that's really flexible on the scale system.
I mean, it's an interesting sort of idea. I think a lot of the scheduling thing came around from we didn't want to have, if you didn't need application-aware snapshots and you're just happy with crash consistency, CSM was a kind of stopgap in that we didn't have a scheduler, but we needed that capability for safeguarded copy. We see, or safeguarded copy is not a long-term retention mechanism on the storage. It's not for backup. It's not for keeping things for a long time. The idea was this is short-term. How far back can you technically roll?
But you might want to keep one for a little bit longer if you go across the schedule, right? So perhaps just look and learn from those.
So we've had, I mean, Chris and I, we've talked a little bit about various different options going into the policy. For example, being able to maybe say, okay, I've created this one, but now I want it to be like a month. I just keep that one for a month. The problem is the interdependencies, because there is still dependency chains and things that happen, but and the cleaning and all that good stuff that you have to do. Other things, though, are more thinking about real life. If you actually need to use this or something happens, for example, ransomware threat detection triggers, do I then take an ad hoc copy as close as possible rather than going all the way out the system and coming back and saying trigger one? And at that point, do I actually want to suspend the deletion? So if I've only said 2 days retention, I'm probably not going to get to the bottom of whether or not things are really going bad in that time. Maybe I just don't want you to delete anymore.
It was more about this sliding granularity through time is really neat on the scale systems. And it's a really neat way of not having an additional snapshot that is just adjacent to the other one due to timing differences.
I'll be honest, I think that's probably a much lower priority for us than getting to 1 million snapshots.
Yeah.
Because getting our snapshot count to be compelling is probably
as Andy said, if that's the case, CSM's your answer.
It's also worth saying that
Andrew.
It's also worth saying that triggering a volume group snapshot is trivially easy to automate with Ansible or anything else, because all you need to do is say, take a snapshot now, and this is the date I want it to be auto-deleted. So whilst CSM has got the ability to do schedules for you, unlike with old flash copy where it was like 17 million flash CLI commands for every snapshot, it's now one thing, and you don't even have to automate the deletion. You just say expire on this date. So you've got lots of flexibility.
Just keep in mind that an external scheduler is a really big problem in a cyber attack.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry to say.
Heard.
And there's also people scripting, so
yeah.
That's another error prone setting.
I still have kind of request. I tried earlier. Now you do have a lot of features, but when using features, other features are not possible. Because on the roadmap you have several things are coming. So if you are using now policy-based AA, you cannot use host clustering. You have to find out somewhere. If you are using transparent cloud tiering, some features are not working. So how do we know what features are not working when you're using what another feature?
So there is a new, so we've been revamping our documents, and this is actually, for your information, public service announcement, we've drastically changed the documentation style since 871, something like that. So now for software features, we're adding like a limitations thing. So again, it's about the combinatorial thing. So you look at the version you want, you look at the feature that you want, and it should tell you that kind of information. I'm not going to say it's 100% finished. Yep, it is still a work in progress, but that's where, certainly with the policy-based stuff, because that's new and incoming and fresh in everyone's mind, that those documents are really, really accurate. Some of the pre-existing features that are a little bit older, we're still revamping those to be more clear. But that's where you would get that kind of statement.
So if you go into the documentation on a particular like flash system or whatever, you'll see the hardware information, there's software information, and then there's software features, I think it's called, in the bottom bit of it, and that tells you you can or you can't do those particular things in that feature. Getting down to the granularity of you can't have a host cluster inside of that, I don't think.
I've lost my mic, but it's on the planning HA page. It does list the features that you can't use.
But then you have to go to all the features to find out what's not possible. So if I will go to click on transparent cloud tiering, I just want to see what's not possible. So,
Understood. Okay.
So
we'll feed that back and make it a little bit easier to find in future.
Take my presentation and turn it into the docs.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thanks to all the experts. Thanks to all the experts.
I'm glad I was there.
Okay. Gave us the hook.
Fabulous.
All right, so Maria gave us the hook, so we had to do that. Now let me make a couple of announcements as we get ready to close. The first thing is we will have a repeat roadmap session to sort of finish off the roadmap for Flash, but also maybe a little bit of more chance for Ask the Experts tomorrow at 4:30 at the end of the day. 4:30, right? Breakout room 1, which is over here. So we will do that. So if you missed anything or you are having a drink and miraculously come up with a question that you didn't know and you can't find Barry for some reason, you can hit there. The next thing that I definitely want to do, where are my Broadcom friends? Broadcom friends. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Okay. So I think, not everybody from Broadcom was here this morning when we gave them a shout out. So I wanted to make sure that now we gave them a shout out. We would like to thank Broadcom for helping us sponsor this event. In particular, the food and drinks. Okay, so thank you to Broadcom. Yes, so thank you guys very much. And our own Ken Griffo, who is half blue and half broad. What's the color? Red. It's like, what color is it? All right. Also, I have a couple of announcements that Maria has given me since. Yes, indeed. Just like Monique's jacket makes you purple. IBM champions, any IBM champions, customers and BPs in the room, any IBM champions in the room, please stand. Please stand up. Please stand up. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Okay. If
at this event, IBM champions.
Newly recruited at this event, IBM champions? Yes! All right. All right. So if you want to know about the IBM Champions program, which is customers and BPs for IBM Champions, the woman in orange is your person, and you get snazzy gear, which is really cool, and a water bottle, which I accidentally left in the back of the room.
And
so
I have
thank
limited
you all very
supplies
much.
left here with me, but we can mail them to you.
Lots of goodies. Oh, by the way, on the topic of swag, Broadcom brought some cool stuff. So just FYI. One other thing, and then we'll close. Tech Exchange. Tech Exchange. Everybody knows what Tech Exchange is, right? IBM Tech Exchange. Tech Exchange is in October, not in Vegas. Yes. Okay. In Orlando. And so that is the first week of October in Orlando.
We are looking for clients and partner speakers.
That's just where I was going. The client and the speaker, the client and partner speaker slots close on the 11th of April to get your session in for consideration. Okay? So clients who would like to speak and partners who would like to speak. 11th of April. Please don't wait until the 11th of April, though. Please get it in a little bit sooner if you'd like to go. And there's a rumor that we may extend either in the front or the back and figure out how to get some people to Kennedy Space Center, just for fun. Last but not least, you have refreshments, alcohol, non-alcoholic, and nibbles outside. I think some people have already started. I noticed there was a lot of starting out there already. There's a lot of people started. So I think we would like to say thank you. Please come back tomorrow while we finish our day. We definitely want to, by the way, get Rob Coventry some questions on fusion. We definitely need some more questions on Ceph. Chris didn't do too bad today.
Yeah, and I think that if you're going to come back for one thing tomorrow, it's for the lightning demos live in London. Lightning demos from our development team at Hersley, led by our very own Evelyn Perez.
Yoo-hoo! Evelyn. Okay, any questions before we close for the day? Remember your survey, if you do decide to leave us. Sad.
And if you are coming back tomorrow, remember to bring your badge.
Yes, bring your badge back tomorrow if you're coming back tomorrow. If you're not coming back tomorrow, remember tomorrow you will get, well, everybody should remember that, you will get a survey tomorrow in email that's very, very important for how we can improve this. This is the first time we've ever tried to mingle products. So if this is valuable and the location is valuable, we need to hear that. Is that acceptable? Is that okay? Okay. All right. We'll see when, I don't know when the Defender demo is going to end. It's probably going to go on for 3
tomorrow.
days, if anybody wants to jump in there and take a look at it. So happens when you get Chris Bulmer on the phone. Thank you all very, very much. Enjoy your nibbles and your drinks and networking, and thank you very much.